Welcome to another episode of Raivision Dialogue. And today I've got three young men with me from Auckland, New Zealand. They are the helm of a very important organization for our global Girmit community. And one of these young men you've already met. So I'm going to start by inviting Ashfaaq Khan to introduce himself. And then one by one, I'll be asking the other two panelists, the president of this organization and executive committee member of this organization, to come forward and introduce themselves. And then we will get on with our conversation today. So over to you, Ashfaaq.
Hey guys, my name is Ashfaaq Khan. I am the chairperson of the Fiji Girmit Foundation. और आज हम लोग आए हैं बात करें about the foundation itself, just to tell people from Australia and around New Zealand कि हम लोग यहाँ पे हम लोग कौन काम करता है and what we do as a foundation. I've lived in New Zealand for the past 6 years, and उससे पहले हम यहाँ पढ़ा भी है. और Krishal Naidu, who was our president, we started the Fiji University of Auckland Fiji Club in Auckland Uni. So that's where we have grown out of, and हम लोग we are a community-based organization working for the Fiji Indian and the Fijian community in New Zealand. I am a sales professional by profession, and I'm also a filmmaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashfaaq. To my audience, you would have met Ashfaaq a few weeks ago as a screenwriter, as a filmmaker, and a very reluctant but very good actor. And as Ashfaaq has said, that we're going to talk about the Girmit Foundation of New Zealand. And now I will invite the president of the Girmit Foundation New Zealand, Krishal Naidu, to introduce himself briefly.
Thank you, Dr. Satish and Ashfaq. Kia ora koutou, everyone. Isambula Vinaka, Ram Ram, Namaskaram, Satsekar, Kemcho, Salam Alaikum, and all warm Pacific greetings to you all. And also today, Satish, as you know, is Fiji's Independence Day, and just like to wish everyone a happy Fiji Independence Day to all Fijians around the world, in Fiji, in New Zealand, and Australia. So I'm the president of Fiji Girmit Foundation New Zealand. It's a privilege and honor, and also a founding member and trustee. And together with all our trustees and executive committee, thank you for having us on the program today. Thank you.
Thank you, Krishal. And now I'll invite Shaneel Sudhakar, who is the executive committee member of the foundation. Please, brief introduction. Tell me a bit more about yourself, and our audience a bit more about yourself.
Thanks, Dr. Rai. My name is Shaneel. I've been with the Girmit Foundation as executive committee member for last 12 months, mainly concentrating on projects. My background is, by trade, I'm an IT professional, but I branched out into business, so I'm self-employed now, running a restaurant and a bar. Been in New Zealand for about 32 years now. And yeah, I wish all the Fijian brothers and sisters a happy Independence Day. And we look forward to growing the Girmit Foundation for the future.
Thank you, Shaneel. Yes, of course, from Raivision Dialogues and Indian Diaspora Council of Australia and Global Girmit Association, to all Fijians, a very happy 51st Independence Day to everybody. And also observing, joining us silently, is the president of Indian Diaspora Council, Pramod Rai. And now we'll get on to the Girmit Foundation, New Zealand's bit of history behind it. And I'll invite the president, Krishal Naidu, to tell us a bit more about the foundation, when it started and how it started, and so on.
Thank you, Dr. Satish Rai. Fiji Girmit Foundation New Zealand was started in 2012, and next year will be our 10 years anniversary. And it started off with few individuals getting together initially, and then we started getting more people into it. But the reason was Girmit Remembrance Day was being held in New Zealand and in Auckland in an ad hoc basis. It used to happen 1 year, then not happen for a few years, and there wasn't a coordinated, planned approach. So we decided to make sure that whatever happens, every year we will get together to have an annual commemoration to remember our Girmit years, but also to educate our youth in particular about who we are, our history and heritage. But over the years, Satish, Fiji Girmit Foundation is not just focusing on remembering the Girmit anniversary. We have moved on, we have evolved. While we remember the history, it's important. It's also important to celebrate our identity and also to advance and advocate for the issues facing our community. And that is very important. क्योंकि हम नहीं चाहते कि यहाँ पर न्यूजीलैंड में हमारा एक दूसरा गिरमिट हो, we've come here, and I came here after the 2000 coup myself, and we want to make sure that our people have support, have an ability to connect and communicate with our people, and basically look after our well-being, and to make sure that whatever reason, whether our parents, grandparents came to New Zealand, becomes a success story. And Ashfaq will talk to you about how we are doing a lot of things with youth. So we're doing a lot of advocacy work, a lot of work around heritage and education. So the organization is growing, is becoming bigger. We're having more people coming in, and we want to thank everyone for supporting us in the journey, including our sponsors.
Excellent, brilliant aims and objectives, Krishnil, and I'm so glad that you have that organization and is growing, and I'm glad that young people, I know there are a few other younger people involved in the foundation. I would invite now Shaneel, if he wants to add something else, more further to this particular question of when and how the Girmit Foundation came up in New Zealand.
Dr. Rai, I think that Krish has pretty much summed it up nicely. How it started and the objectives. So yeah, no, I'll leave it to Chris.
Thank you. And to Ashfaq on that, I briefly mentioned that yesterday when I had a conversation with him. I first came to know about the Girmit Foundation of New Zealand through my friend for many, many years, Thakur Ranjit Singh. And I know that he is perhaps still involved in the foundation along with people like Rajan Prasadji. Can you tell us a bit about them, the elders of the community?
Yes.
Thakur Saab and Rajan Saab, both of them are the founding trustees along with Krishal. So Krish can probably elaborate on the founders of the foundation.
So Dr. Satish Rai, I mean, we have got a very capable, experienced bunch of trustees. Harnam Singh Golian, the likes of author Tears in Paradise, Enslaved in Paradise, Mr. Rajan Prasad, Ranjit Singh, Shu Charan from Fiji. He was in the parliament, Jennifer Khan, Mr. Semachari, who's been doing a lot of great work in the community, owns Ends Funeral Home. And we are always refreshing and growing our trustee team as well, so that people are bringing in different skill set and experiences into the board. And of course, our executive committee also evolves and grows year after year. So we've got a very strong leadership behind us in terms of governance. But in 2019, the trustees decided to give more responsibility to the younger generations, because a lot of the things were about connecting to the youth in New Zealand. And they felt that the young generation, we call ourselves young in the 20s, 30s range, early 40s. So we are blessed to have their blessings around us. And we started to take this organization into a journey of doing project work, well-being work, identity work, celebrating our cuisine, which Ashfaq is involved in. So they are not hands off, they're still active, but we are kind of the front line, as to speak. Yes.
I'm so glad that the seniors are there behind you. They're very capable people. I've known Thakur Ranjit Singh since 1976. It's been a long time, and I've met Rajan Prasadji and others, and they've done the right thing by bringing for the younger people. And I'm going to talk later about how we're going to bring in the next generation into the foundation. But now you have mentioned already some of the aims and objectives of Girmit Foundation. Chris, do you want to add a bit further to that? The main aims and objectives, what you're trying to achieve for the Girmitia communities in New Zealand, and perhaps the whole of the population of New Zealand.
So even though we talk about Girmit, we are not just about Girmit. We are a community organization for Fiji people, primarily. And we have worked and we continue to work with all the other cultures that make up Fiji Islands, and we have been in partnership in a lot of projects with them. It is about educating our people, but it's also about connecting to the wider New Zealand society and educating and creating awareness to others about who we are, our migration journey, our background, our identity, so that people know, when they hear about our people, our stories, they know who we are. So I think as much as we want to educate our people and bring in our youth to understand who we are, it's also about creating a general awareness, because at the end of the day, we have migrated to New Zealand and we have to work together with other cultures and live in a multicultural New Zealand society. And on top of that, Satishji, advocacy is really important for us, because there is a gap, there has been a gap for Fiji people, especially with Fijian Indians, and at the moment we are trying to advocate strongly around the well-being needs, identity issues for our community, where we're missing out on a lot of resources, opportunities. So that's an ongoing advocacy that's happening. So we work together with government agencies, we connect with them, and we let them know who we are and what are some of the problems. But also it's about celebrating our community. And we celebrate our community by coming together, religious functions, cultural events, Girmit events. At the moment, last week was Fiji Language Week, and we've set up a program around that as well. So the more you do of these things, the more other people get to know who we are. So we want to make Fijian Indians relevant. We want to make people aware of who we are. It's a unique community of migration and history, and more people in New Zealand are connecting and learning about it, and so we feel really happy and empowered.
Great. Krishal, I've been told, I've been calling you Krishnil.
It's Krishal or Krish.
Krishal, thanks Ashfaq for pointing that out to me. And Shaneel, do you want to add anything to what Krishal has said?
Well, Dr. Rai, since I've joined the team, we've seen the team taking a very active role, fronting up for the Fiji Indian community, which is pleasing to see. As Chris has said, he has been very active in terms of trying to get the identity issue sorted out for us. And it's still a long journey. And we are hoping that the community gets together and becomes one and voice one as a one voice, instead of trying to do multiple voices in a different direction. It is very important for us to bring the community together and work as a team, from all different lives, all different cultures, background, and tradition. If we need to achieve what we are working for, the community needs to start working together. We cannot be working individually. We need to be collective.
Yeah, working with the community here since 1996. I think it's a very, very big ask to bring the community together. But I'm so glad that at least in New Zealand, you are more cohesive and working together than perhaps in several other communities where our descendants have settled. Whilst wait for Krish to join us again, Ashfaq, do you want to add anything to that before I move on to the next part of the conversation?
Yes, just on the note, I mean, just adding to what Shaneel and Krish have said, our foundation, the Fiji Girmit Foundation of New Zealand, is probably the largest circular organization for the Fiji Indian diaspora in New Zealand. So basically, we are inclusive. We include people of all religion, all sections or parts of subcultures of the Indian diaspora within Fiji. And also part of that, we celebrate the Fijian culture, the Fiji culture in as well. Part of the we are inclusive that way. And just adding on to what you said about how community functions in Australia, I think the difference that we have over here in terms of that is that our community is less scattered. In Australia, Sydney is a huge place. So if you're just looking at getting people together at one spot, you're traveling a couple of hours. So the connection bit is a little bit, harder to do. But over here, we can organize things a lot quicker, I suppose.
Yeah, that's one of the issues, Ashfaq. Krishal has said that next year you'll be marking the 10th anniversary of the start of the Foundation of New Zealand. You at this important juncture, we always take stock of our achievements. So perhaps you have already thought about some of the achievements, and that's where I'm going now. Krishal first, some of the achievements of the Girmit Foundation of New Zealand so far.
There are many achievements, but I would say to begin with, because the intention was always to remember the Girmit anniversary, that is something we've been very successful with. And this year's anniversary, Satish Rai, we had about 1,600 people in an overflowing capacity hall. And there are people from all walks of life, we had Kiwis, New Zealanders, Europeans, Rotuman brothers and sisters, Indigenous Ethiopian brothers and sisters. And that was amazing because the fact that we're able to bring everyone together as a community, not just for Girmit anniversary, but also, the Fiji community. And to me, that is really very, very pleasing, And so that's one achievement, is that year after year, the Girmit anniversary keeps getting bigger and bigger. And we have got very strong presence of New Zealand political leaders coming, and they're learning about us, they're learning who we are, and they're able to reflect on where our needs and gaps in services and support may be. So that's one. The other is it's really pleasing to see more and more young people actually now celebrating their Fiji Indian identity, coming out and asserting their identity, feeling proud of it, feeling proud to share their stories. And this was always one of the objectives, is to talk about the history of Fiji, who we are, where we've come from. Even though we had difficult times in Fiji with the Girmit history, but the journey and the celebration of our people coming to New Zealand, how things have changed, how we have grown, how we have become a prosperous society contributing towards New Zealand's economically, socially, culturally. So that's the other aspect, is to see the youth being empowered, being more proud, and even speaking in Fiji Hindi and connecting with other cultures. And the other one would be, is really advocating for our people. There are a lot of issues in our community which have not been picked up, which have not been advanced and advocated. And we are not saying we are perfect. We are not saying we have done all of them, but we do our best where we can, where we see injustice, where we see breach of Fiji Indians or Fiji communities' human rights. where we see, our people don't have a voice. We fill in and do our best to be that voice. And a lot of people thank us for that all the time. We get a lot of emails, we get a lot of messages. One of the most amazing thing is that people email us about their issues, which, so because they have the confidence to talk about it, because they know we hear the issues and we can, in certain situations, be a representative voice for them with those government agencies. I mean, last week, I was dealing with a student whose scholarship was declined at a major university. And so I'm working with her in the background to support her. And during COVID, we have had people reach out to us for support around food parcels, mental health issues, which Shaneel and Ashfaq can further elaborate on. So we've been very, very flexible and dynamic during COVID response for our community.
Excellent, great, Krishal. Just a little comment. I like the idea, we do it here as well, telling the Girmit history and heritage to the wider community. Many years ago when we were in Fiji, we didn't know about Girmit history at all. And now through organizations like yours, you are reaching out and telling the rest of the New Zealanders and slowly will be telling the rest of the world about our Girmit history and heritage. Shaneel, in case Chris has left anything out, perhaps the smaller achievements, do you want to add to that?
Well, there are quite a bit of achievements since we have come on board. And I think, as Chris has mentioned, I think one of the achievements is that continuous Girmit celebration in New Zealand. And looking at the rate and the way we did it this year, we have to plan for a bigger and better one next year because we have raised the bar. Mm-hmm. We have raised the expectation of people, and the unfortunate part is we'll have to look for funding, which has to come through the sponsors, and make it a bigger and better one.
Excellent. Before I head on to the next question, which is about your future plans, Ashfaq, you mentioned you look after the youth. So do you want to say anything about the achievements as far as the youth is concerned, and then start off the plans for the youth in future?
We have basically, we're just trying to make our youth wing a little bit stronger now. We have shifted focus to that now, and we are allocating more resources to our youth wing for now. Previously, what we have done is we have had a few speech contests and a few quizzes and stuff here and there, just to make sure that to have youth participation, but that was more at a superficial level, just because you're just taking ideas from them, and it was just. But what we're doing now is we're having youth take a more active role. So we're actually having branching out a subcommittee within the Fiji Girmit Foundation, which is the youth committee. So that is headed by a young man named Shivran. He's the executive looking after youth in per se, and he's overlooked by me. So essentially what we are looking at is we are looking at projects that are implemented, run, and executed, and by the youth. So the idea of this is that we would like to empower young people to take over from us eventually and be running the show, because you can only have fresh ideas for so long, and then after that we'd like to take a more sort of ceremonial leadership role, like our trustees do right now. Just spiritual leadership in terms of just looking and giving advice, more of an advisory role. We did a youth panel a couple of days ago on Fiji Hindi, which was you got to hear from young people what they thought about the language, what what sort of challenges they faced, being in a country in which Fiji Hindi can't be your language. I mean, sometimes it's not your language of choice. So we talked about the challenges they faced. We talked about how they talked about how we can make the language more accessible to them, and a little bit, and we can maintain the language for generations to come. We're doing a few other projects shortly with the youth as well. Once the committee is fully structured and running, so they will generate the ideas themselves. They'll execute it themselves and all we'll do is help them out where we can.
Great. On that, can I just say that how much I appreciated the short film, but a very powerful film made by Nidhi and the young man. And I hope that New Zealand Girmit Foundation would encourage a similar film. As a filmmaker, I really appreciate that films are a very powerful medium to reach out to the people, and I hope more such films are made. Not only in New Zealand, but throughout the Girmit diaspora. And now to Krish, as a president, what are your plans for immediate? I know next year is a celebration, a 10-year celebration of the foundation. So next year and beyond.
Yes, Satish ji, we all forgot to mention something here. We have been very active around well-being for the community. We've been doing a lot of workshops. We've been bringing Fijian Indian professionals to talk about mental health, to talk about suicide, because it's an issue for our community, and we've been trying to raise these well-being issues. So on an ongoing basis, the well-being of our community as a theme will become part of many projects to come. And during COVID, we've been also raising funds to support Fiji. We've sent around $15,000 this year to help with food parcels and stuff. So I think because we all know pandemic is not going to finish soon, one of the aims moving forward is the ongoing maintenance and support around well-being for people in New Zealand, but also, thinking about our people back home and where we could be of help. The other thing we have discussed as a committee and the team is that we want to collate and bring what we call Girmit Gunj, which is the music of Girmit, the songs and the performance, and try and actually put it in a proper digital format, store the knowledge so that it is there for the future generations. What's happening at the moment, we have people coming and performing and stuff, right? But there is no collection of all the materials. And there are some really good singers who have sang the song and they're not here anymore. We have not done a good job in terms of putting the information together so that it's there in a file or is there in an archive for the future generation. So that's one of the other projects. And of course, one of the big ones, really big ones, is to improve the quality of data, census data for our community. We have no idea accurately how many of us live in this country. I'm not sure you do as well in Australia, because the data is all over the place. We have a good estimate, but we need to do better in terms of improving the count for our census, because having a better count will mean we can respond better to community needs and work more collaboratively with government departments and agencies.
Yeah,
and many other things. It's too much to talk about in one session today.
Yeah, definitely. And yes, you're right about the collection of census data here in Australia. I think it's the same in New Zealand as well. No separate census recording on Fiji Indians. It's other Fijians or Indians. So we lose that. The other put maybe
that connects very closely to the issue of identity.
Yes.
Where we have been missing out on support and resources around the Pacific umbrella. And so it's a complex issue, but there's a lot of issues around what can we do better to support our people and make sure there's equity and fairness in the system, and that's something we've been very strongly advocating, especially since 2019, And we've also used mainstream media to let the New Zealand society, the New Zealand people know about the challenges facing Fijian Indians. So it's a long journey, Satishji, but we are hopeful some good results will come out soon.
Well, this is an introductory conversation, and our platform is there for us to meet again and discuss a few other issues. As you mentioned, the collection of our Girmit songs of lamentation, as I say, the Bidesias, the Sohar, the Birhas, all those. We started that process already, a conversation already about a year ago. And I'm so glad that you have mentioned that today. We can start collaborating on that as well. And there's so many other things we can collaborate on. And I'll bring in Shaneel, if you want to add anything more to what Chris has said on the future plans.
Basically, Chris has summed it up pretty nicely in regards to what our plans are. There are a lot of things that are in the pipeline where we're trying to reorganize the organization as well, make it more professional, make it more focused moving forward, especially with all the noises that have been made in terms of identity issues and things like that. So we need to get ourselves working towards a very lean and mean machine type scenario where we can actually collaborate and ensure that all of us are on the same platform, and we're able to negotiate with the agencies, you know, our right. At the moment we are negotiating, we're not demanding. Hopefully it doesn't go to the stage where we have to go to the other level to get that identity issue sorted out.
Yeah. Talking about identity, I've got two small little questions relating to you three. And as young people who are now the forefront of the Girmit Foundation of New Zealand. And let me relate a bit about how I started. And when I started, I was a youth as well. I was around 30, way back in 1987. I had witnessed the first coup and the second coup on the television in my London home. And then I started to question my identity, my home. And since then, it has been a very, very long journey. Most of the time, it has been very lonely, but I'm still here. I'm trying desperately to hand over the reins here in Australia to the younger generation. It's a bit difficult. But the question I want to ask the three of you today, you are young people. How did you and why did you start this journey on Girmit Foundation? Because we don't have too many of the younger people doing that. So I would start off first with Krish. Why did you embark on this journey?
Very good question, Satishji. So I came to New Zealand after the 2000 coup. And when I came, I was studying, there was only 3% of Fijian Indian descent in my school. And at that time, I started to think about, you know, here I am just after the coup, stuck in a school in South Auckland, you know, around a very diverse community. And we didn't get support, you know, and we faced so many issues as the three of us, and then more people started coming. But today, if you go to any school in South Auckland, there's hundreds of us there. But the key point is that I've always been a very, very proud descendant of Girmit. I've always acknowledged and appreciated the fact that we were in Fiji and we're here in New Zealand is because the contribution they made towards our well-being, our journey. And I'm very proud and passionate about my identity, my Girmit history, but also it is not just about the Girmit history, it is about making sure that our people can live with pride, dignity, with their human rights intact, because we have faced a lot of discrimination in Fiji, racial discrimination, and there are examples of that in New Zealand that we have faced as well. And to me, it's making sure that our people, all the hard work that has been put in by the Girmitians, by the leaders, by our parents, by our grandparents, do not go to a waste. And it really hurts me to see sometimes our youth, our young people struggling in New Zealand, falling off the system, falling off the net. And it's just about making sure our parents and everyone in the community come together to support them, because we need to raise and fly the Fiji flag and fly the Girmit flag, fly the Fiji Indian identity flag with pride, with passion and love, because we are a unique group of people and, we want to leave a legacy behind, we want to make sure we've made a difference to our youth, to our community. And that's something that drives us. We don't get paid for this. We put hours and hours, day in, day out, week in, week out. But the love for people, the passion and pride, for me personally, is what keeps me going. But it's tough, as we are growing, there's more challenges around growth and how we manage growth, how we manage the demands and needs of a growing community. And a lot of things we've done this year on COVID wasn't planned, When we wake up in the morning, Satishji, every day we get messages from Fiji for support. We wake up in the morning, we get messages from people on work permit in New Zealand needing food support, which led to the food drive, which I'm not sure if Shaneel talked about in detail. But we see our people struggling and we feel we have a moral responsibility to act and support them.
Thank you, Chris. Before I say anything on this, your passion, I'll invite Shaneel to introspect and say what motivated him on this path.
Well, to be honest, Doc, it was a conversation that I was having with Chris one day over a beer, and he started talking about what he's doing. And then I said, I'm a proud Fijian. We cherish our days in Fiji. And it made sense that the struggles that we went through when we were studying in New Zealand, when we came here, we didn't have the support. We didn't have the infrastructure. We were left alone. We didn't have people to talk to. I personally agree with Chris. We don't want to see our younger generation falling off the net. I have seen a lot of my friends that they haven't recovered from the mistakes they have made. I like to see our Fiji Indian identity recognized in New Zealand, or given the respect that we deserve. We as a community have worked very hard, either we lived in Fiji or in New Zealand, Australia, Canada, but as a community, they are very hardworking. And I love to see that we can make a little bit of difference in getting the identity issue sorted for the Fiji community, especially for the Indian brothers and sisters. It takes a lot of sacrifice, a lot of personal time, a lot of family time. As Chris has said, a lot of hours, a lot of thinking, a lot of planning, a lot of things get done unplanned, but the end result is the satisfaction that we get when we see a smile on people's face, that we have made a small difference in their life.
Thank you for sharing that, Shaneel. And now, Ashfaq, what motivated you? I know what motivated you into writing in films and acting, but
no, not so much acting, Satish. Yeah. So, my nana, who brought me up, used to say, your name should not have been Ashfaq, your name should have been Inkalab. Because I was always, I always thought, I always saw things in two shades. Either it was fair or unfair. And, whenever something, even as a child, seemed unfair, I used to talk about it. So that sort of escalated. And when I was in Fiji, it was a little bit easier, I suppose, because you've got your people, your language, your culture, and everything, and it's easier, to get things across. So I was not really thinking in terms of identity and belonging and those kind of things at that level, at that high level. But when I moved to New Zealand the first time around to study at the University of Auckland, I left all my friends behind who were in USP, and I came off to University of Auckland. So I remember walking into the campus the first time that you had these huge buildings, glass staircase and coffee shops and little food court area, which is something that I was not very familiar with, and everything looked like everything looked very overwhelming. So I thought, and where are my people? I remember. So I had a friend, his name was Rajiv, and he went to the same school. He was a year behind me, but he was at Auckland University, but he came an early year before me. So I saw him, he was walking down the stairs. He said, "Hey, Ashfaq," and I got talking to him. He said, "Where are my people?" I said, we should formulate a Fiji club maybe. And then Rajiv introduced me to Krishal, and it was Krishal, me, Rajiv, and another friend, another guy from Lambasa, Raju. So we individually went down to every Fiji Indian we could find in Auckland University, and we started talking and trying to get them, involved into the Fiji club. And that's where it started for me, So I left, and I went back to Fiji, and I started doing my own thing here. But thankfully, Krishal continued the vision, and then he helped formulate the Fiji Girmit Foundation after that. So yeah, that's that in a nutshell.
I think, Ashfaq, whilst all three of you were talking, several thoughts were going through my mind, and the most dominant one is that way back during the Girmit time, the Girmitians also probably went through what you described when you first arrived in New Zealand, 3 of you, 4 of you. There were also a handful of people sort of allocated a plantation. And some probably were from North India, some were from South India, some were Hindus, some were Muslims. There would have been huge collaboration between them. Initially, they're getting to know each other, and then they grew, they formed a very cohesive Girmitia community in Fiji. And then we know what happened after 1987. And the same journey, I may be wrong, but this is what I hear the 3 of you saying, that some 20 years ago, fresh from Fiji, young people found that they were lonely, they needed support, and they came together. And today we have the Girmit Foundation of New Zealand doing extremely well. And in your hands, I see the foundation and our community doing very well. One last final thought before we end, because we've been talking for quite a while. Now, at the moment, I'm working with a number of young people globally, descendants of Girmitians. I work with people in America, in West Coast, in New York. I work with people in Switzerland. I work with the people in London. Work with people in India. You may already have a handful with your work, with your life, and with the work on the Girmit Foundation. But one by one, very quickly, starting with Krishal, how would you like to, from time to time, to join our global initiative, which is a bit different from the aims and objectives of our individual organizations here in Australia and in New Zealand?
Be very keen to find more about it. We're always open-minded. we're always looking for opportunities to collaborate and also collaborate internationally as well, And one of the things I forgot to mention before was that one of our objectives is to spread Girmit organizations across New Zealand into the regional areas of New Zealand, into the South Island. And there's a lot of work going around the scene at the moment as we speak. And we are hopeful that more, affiliates to Fiji Girmit Foundation New Zealand will come up. So thank you for bringing that up. I will definitely keep an eye out for that. And I'm sure we can always find common grounds in certain projects to work with. Thank you.
Thank you. Ratan Prakashji was supposed to join us today from Wellington, and I know that you have Ashfaq has attended his organization's event, Girmit event in Wellington. Probably all of you have. So already you've got somebody in an organization in Wellington, so it's a good start. Same question to you, Shaneel.
We'll be keen to have a look at what and how we can help and where we can help out. Let's say when the opportunity comes, we'll be happy to have a look at it and see how we can collaborate and work with that.
Okay, I'll surely send you some information on Global Girmit Association. Ashfaq, your thoughts on that before we wrap up?
See, we're happy to collaborate where we can, because there are certain things I think that at a higher level we can potentially work together, especially things that I'm working with, like things like literature and conserving literature, conserving poetry and all our arts. So those are the things that I will potentially reach out to you to contribute. And also, we will be putting out a lot more media across our platforms very soon. So we are starting with we're doing a cooking show on Fiji, on Fijian food generally, Fiji Indian food and Fijian food and Pacific flavors associated with Fiji. It's called Fiji and Zest, which will be starting very soon. We'll be doing, collaborative historical documentation of videos of the older generation, and these things need to be shared across the board on a wider scale. So those are the things that I want to actually collaborate on, and and I can actually, at a personal level, I can actually potentially work with you with the Global Girmit Diaspora projects as well. One more thing that we have been contemplating doing is something that I'm going to reach out to you very shortly. Is a project, having a literature, some sort of literature developed around Fiji Hindi, So the language has actually got more than one book that we have right now.
Thank you. Whilst I'll be asking all three of you to have your final thoughts before we wrap up, I message to Pramod Bhai. I'll welcome your thoughts on this at the end of the conversation with the three guests. So if you can hear us, you can switch on your video and your audio. And I'll go one by one, once again, to Krishal. First, your final thoughts before we wrap up for today.
Thank you, Satish, Dr. Satish Rai, for having us together. And, it's always important for us to share what we do and talk about what we do and, learn from each other. But I just want to say that, I'm really, really proud that the Fijian Indian community in New Zealand work very well with our Indian brothers and sisters from India. And we work very well with Pacific community, and we are part of the Pacific community ourselves, the Tangata Whenua, the Maori brothers and sisters in New Zealand. And it's about working together for the betterment of New Zealand, but at the same time, protecting our identity, advancing our identity, our pride, our cultural identity, and teaching our young generations about our history and heritage. So, it's not that we are saying that we are working in isolation and silo, we're working together, but it's also about having pride in who we are, because we are a very unique community. And if we don't do it, no one else will protect who we are. We are a very small community, and you would know better, wherever we are in the world, we have to carry the cultural flag and be proud of our Girmit history. So we will continue to work and advocate and find common grounds to collaborate where possible. Thank you for having us. Vinaka Bakalevu.
Thank you, Vinaka. Krishal, yes, I agree with you. There's no other community like Indo-Fijian community of Fiji, and we have to make sure that we leave, the same community as we found for future generations. Shaneel, lots of
thank you, Dr. Rai, of having us today. I must say that it was a pleasure having this conversation with you. We'd like to say that we'd like to protect our identity, our Fiji Indian identity for the future generations, our tradition, our culture, our language, so that the future generation can at least know who they are, where their roots were, and how they have grown up. Because most of our kids are born in New Zealand. So what we are trying to do and what the vision is, and personally I like to see, is they have that connection to Fiji. They have that connection to our language. They have that connection to our food, our taste. They have our Diwalis, our Eid, and things like that. So that is what I like to see, and that is what we're going to be working towards, preserving some of these identities so the future generations can benefit from that. Thank you.
Some very inspiring words, and I'm sure with people like you, you're sending a very strong message to the whole Fiji Girmit diaspora, and I'm sure that once this video reaches out to other people, they will be inspired to follow the path you are setting. And before I have my final thoughts, Ashfaq, your final thoughts?
So a lot of people, when they talk about Girmit history, they think about our past, our forefathers, our ancestors, how we got here and stuff. But I think it's more than that. I am a part of the Girmit history. Girmit history runs through my vein as much as it runs through your veins, and it's going to run in the veins of my descendants long after I have gone. Now, how connected we are to where it all began is another story. So I think it is very important for us to, even though our culture is evolving and branching out and diversifying, and we are including a lot more into our culture and our presence and our identity as Fiji Indians, it is very important to remember where it all began, and it's very important to preserve some of the blessings that this struggle has brought us. The language, the unique identity, our flavors, our customs, and generally the sense of brotherhood that our forefathers created in the chip. So that is something that we should aim at continuing and empowering our youth and our future leaders to sort of move forward. So that's my 2 cents.
I'm very happy today to have met, apart from Ashfaq, 2 young men. I think the conversation today will inspire a lot of people, not just in the Fijian Girmit diaspora, but also in the global Girmit diaspora. I personally have learned a lot about the Fiji Girmit Foundation of New Zealand, something which I was not, many things I was not aware of. And I hope the video reaches across the globe. I'll ensure that it does, and I'll request you people to do the same. The conversation, I think, this inspiring conversation should reach across the world and inspire young people, not just the descendants of Girmitians. We live in a global community where a lot of people who are displaced from their homeland and they're living in another land. They should be inspired to look after their own community, their language, their culture, their history. And what three of you have said today should inspire thousands, if not millions of people. I don't know whether Pramod Bhai is with us or not. So if not, then once again, I'll thank firstly Ashfaq for making this possible, and Krish and Shaneel for joining us and providing your very, very invaluable insight on what you're doing in New Zealand. And before I end, it is still the Independence Day for Fiji. So happy Independence Day to all the Fijians in Fiji and across the globe. And for me, Satish Rai, Vinaka, Dhanbad, thank you.
Thank you, Satish.